Hey everyone, and welcome to the show. Have you ever felt like you were like a puppet? You know, like someone's pulling all the strings and you're dancing to their tune?
Ooh, that's a creepy thought.
I know, right? Well, that's the feeling I was left with after reading The Gold of Fort Knox. It's an action-adventure thriller that will have you questioning, well, pretty much everything.
Sounds intense.
It is. If you're into stories about loyalty and betrayal and, oh, some really high-stakes treasure hunting, then you've got to check this one out. And don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into books and topics that'll really make you think.
And if you want to pick up a copy of the book, you can find an Amazon link in the episode description.
All right, so this is book number 12 in the Nick Caine series, but don't worry if you haven't read the others.
You can jump right in.
Yeah, you'll catch on quick. Imagine, like, Indiana Jones meets James Bond, but with a modern twist, and you'll be in the right ballpark.
Yeah, I can see that.
So the book starts with this super secretive meeting on a deserted beach at, like, 3:47 a.m.
Whoa, that's specific.
Right. It's like straight out of a spy movie. We've got this, like, shadowy figure making a deal with a mysterious fixer. It really sets the stage for the whole book.
It makes you wonder what they're up to. I mean, what kind of job requires that level of secrecy?
Exactly. And then we're introduced to not one, but three seemingly unrelated storylines. We've got a treasure hunt happening in a war-torn Ukraine.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And it involves this historical artifact called the Bulava of Hetman Bohdan Khmelnytsky.
Say that 5 times fast.
I know, right? And then there are these two Colombian sisters on a secret mission, and this shadowy organization known as Spinnaker, they seem to be pulling all the strings. I was hooked, trying to figure out how all these pieces fit together.
That's what I love about a good thriller, those intertwining plot lines that keep you guessing.
Yeah.
It's like a puzzle you're trying to solve.
Totally. And the way the author weaves these threads together is masterful. What initially seems like separate plots gradually, come together and reveal all these hidden agendas and connections.
Right. It makes you realize that nothing is as simple as it seems.
And then, of course, we have Nick and Ishi.
Ah, our favorite duo.
Yeah. They're navigating this whole world of espionage, and their banter is spot on. It provides some much-needed comic relief amidst all the danger.
I love their dynamic. It's like, even in the face of danger, they can still find something to joke about.
I know. I mean, who else would joke about, like, what kind of weapons they dislike being shot at with?
Yeah, that's so them. Their back and forth adds a lot of humor to the story, but it also reveals a lot about their personalities and the bond they share.
You're right. And just when you think you're starting to get a grasp on who the players are and what their motives are, bam. We're introduced to Kirstina's, Silji's younger sister.
Ah,
And get this, she's involved with Spinnaker.
what? No way. That's a twist I did not see coming.
I know, right? It throws a whole wrench into
It
things.
makes you question everything about loyalty and family. I mean, would you trust your sibling with a dangerous secret mission?
Seriously.
Yeah.
And then we have Cat and Nat, the Colombian sisters. They're a force of nature. They're beautiful, cunning, and totally ruthless. And that scene where they use, well, their feminine wiles to manipulate the doorman and seduce their target, Edwin Holloway.
Oh, yeah, that scene is gold.
It's like watching a perfectly choreographed dance of deception.
And it's not just entertaining, it's a clever way to subvert those typical spy tropes. You know? It highlights the power women have in a world that's often dominated by men.
Right. Cat and Nat use what others might perceive as their weaknesses, like their beauty, to their advantage.
It's like they outsmart everyone who underestimates them.
Exactly. But just when you think you've got it all figured out, boom, another twist. Nick and Ishi have been set up by Spinnaker and are being framed for the theft of the Murphy Nugget.
The Murphy Nugget.
Yeah, it's this legendary gold nugget rumored to be hidden within Fort Knox.
Oh, wow. So they're being framed for stealing a priceless treasure.
Yeah, pretty much. And this plot twist throws everything into question. Suddenly you don't know who to trust.
It makes you realize how easily people can be manipulated, how anyone can become a pawn in a bigger game.
Right. It's scary to think about.
It also raises questions about the ethics of Spinnaker's methods, right? Like, are their actions justified just because they achieve their goals?
It's a good question.
Or are they crossing a line?
It makes you wonder if anyone in this story is actually acting in their own best interests.
Or if everyone is just a puppet dancing to someone else's tune.
Exactly. And then, another surprise, Silja shows up. But it's not really Silji, it's her younger sister, Kirsty, pretending to be her.
Wait, what? So there's mistaken identity now, too?
I know, right? It's like a hall of mirrors. You don't know what's real anymore.
The author is just playing with us at this point, but that's what makes it so good. It keeps you guessing and makes you question everything you think you know.
It's brilliant.
Absolutely. Silja is definitely a character you keep thinking about. She's torn between, her feelings for Nick and her loyalty to Spinnaker, which, let's be honest, is an organization that doesn't exactly operate in the clearest moral waters. And it really makes you wonder about her motives, how far she'd go to protect the people she cares about.
Yeah, you're right about that. And her relationship with Nick adds a whole other layer of complexity, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they have this undeniable chemistry, but their connection is constantly being tested by the secrets they keep from each other and the dangerous situations they're always thrown into.
It's like their relationship is a perfect example of the whole trust and betrayal thing that runs through the entire book. Makes you wonder if love can even survive in that kind of world, a world where deception is just like a way of life.
It does make you think. And speaking of deception, let's talk about the heist itself. Fort Knox is supposed to be impenetrable, the most secure gold depository in the world. How did Spinnaker even pull this off? I mean, this isn't just some small-time robbery. We're talking about a Murphy nugget.
Yeah, that's where Spinnaker's planning, their meticulous planning and use of misinformation, that's where it really shines. Remember how Kajesti was watching everyone at Fort Knox, like the staff, their routines, the security protocols, all that? Well, those seemingly tiny details she gathered, they were crucial to the success of the whole operation.
It's like they were playing chess, thinking 10 moves ahead, anticipating every possible countermove. And then they had Arthur, their undercover operative, right there inside Fort Knox, ready to make the switch. It's crazy how they pulled it off without anyone suspecting a thing.
Don't forget Kat and Nat. Their mission to discredit Holloway, the security consultant, it seemed like a side story, but it was essential. By making Holloway look bad, they shifted attention away from Nick and Ishi, making them the perfect scapegoats.
It's like a magician's trick. You're so focused on one thing that you miss what's happening right in front of you.
Exactly, and it makes you realize just how powerful distraction and misdirection can be, not just in espionage, but in life, too. Think about it. How often do we get caught up in the small details, and completely miss the bigger picture?
That's a good point. And a little unsettling, to be honest.
Right. It makes you think about how easily we can be manipulated, whether we realize it or not.
There's another layer to the story that I find really interesting. The whole idea of need-to-know information and how knowledge is compartmentalized. Each character only gets a small piece of the puzzle. They don't see the whole picture.
Classic espionage tactic. And it's smart for a few reasons, like it minimizes the damage if someone gets caught. And it also keeps people from questioning the morality of the whole thing. They're just following orders, not really understanding the consequences.
Which makes you think about the ethical implications of all that. When does following orders become, being complicit? And how do you hold people responsible when they're deliberately kept in the dark?
Tough questions. No easy answers there. It's one of those moral gray areas that make this book so thought-provoking.
What about those at the top of Spinnaker? What are they after? Are they willing to sacrifice anything, anyone, to get what they want?
The book leaves a lot of those questions unanswered, which adds to the mystery. You get glimpses into Spinnaker's inner workings, but their true purpose? It's still shrouded in secrecy.
It's like peeling back layers of an onion, and every layer you peel back, you find more questions than answers. Just when you think you're getting close to the core, you realize there's another layer underneath.
I love that analogy, and it really captures how complex this story is, how it makes us rethink everything we think we know about power, loyalty, even the truth.
Yeah, and the ending. It's not exactly a warm and fuzzy feeling, more like a sense of unease and a whole lot of unanswered questions. That last scene with the mysterious woman, the one from the beginning in the Ambrosius amulet, it's like the author is, teasing us, suggesting there's a much bigger game at play here.
It's a great ending. Satisfying and unsettling all at the same time. It ties back to the opening, brings everything full circle, but it also opens up a whole new world of possibilities, makes you realize that this story is more than just a heist. It's about something much, much bigger, something that goes way beyond the pages of the book.
It really does. It's a story about choices, consequences, those ripple effects that can last for, generations maybe.
It leaves you feeling kind of uneasy, wondering who's really in control and what they're planning next.
It does. What did you think of the ending? Any theories about the mysterious woman or the Ambrosius amulet?
I think the author cleverly left clues about her throughout the book. Clues about her identity and her connection to Spinnaker, it's like a puzzle waiting to be solved. And I bet readers will have fun speculating about her motives and her place in the grand scheme of things.
I think so too. It makes the book so rereadable. You can go back, pick up on the clues you might have missed, and it just adds another layer of depth to the story. But let's step back for a second and talk about the characters themselves. What makes them so compelling? And how do their individual stories contribute to the big themes of the book?
One of the best things about this author is how he writes characters that are both relatable and complex. They're not just stereotypes or, one-dimensional. They feel real, like people you might actually meet, with their own motivations, flaws, and desires.
Yeah, and they're all stuck in this web of intrigue, having to make these difficult choices that have huge consequences. Let's start with Nick Caine, the protagonist. He's a skilled operative, a bit of a rogue, definitely charming, but he's also carrying, the weight of his past, trying to balance his need for adventure with his desire for something more stable, more normal.
He's the classic anti-hero, a man of action who, sometimes bends the rules, but he's also capable of real loyalty and compassion. He's constantly battling his inner demons.
I think a lot of readers can relate to Nick's struggles. He's trying to figure out where he belongs in a world that feels pretty chaotic and unpredictable. He's just trying to do the right thing with the limited information he has.
He's a reminder that even the most skilled and resourceful people can be manipulated, used. He's a pawn in this larger game, and he's just starting to realize how much he's been played.
And that realization leads him to some pretty tough choices. Choices that make him question his loyalties and really truly examine his own moral compass.
Right.
I've talked about Nick, but what about Ishi? He's often seen as the more level-headed one, the analytical one, but he's got a lot of depth too.
He's a great contrast to Nick's impulsive nature. Ishi's cautious, thinks strategically, always a few steps ahead. But he's also deeply loyal to Nick, willing to put himself on the line for his friend.
Their friendship is one of the things that make the story so good. They balance each other out, bring out the best in each other. They're a real team, and they need each other to survive in this crazy world they're in.
Their relationship is proof that even in the midst of all the chaos and deception, human connection can still thrive. We all need someone we can trust, someone who has our back.
Yeah, it's a solid friendship. It shows that even in this world full of shadows and secrets, real connections can exist. And speaking of connections, let's talk about Kajarsti. She's a character who, I don't know, she really stood out to me. At first, she seems all innocent and naive, but then as the story goes on, we see a different side of her, a more, I guess, calculating and ambitious side.
She's really interesting. On the one hand, she seems to care about her sister, wants to protect her from Spinnaker and everything that comes with it. But then she's also kind of drawn to that world. Like she's tempted by the power and the influence that it offers.
And we can't forget her role in the heist. She was gathering information, manipulating things behind the scenes to make sure Spinnaker succeeded. It's like she was playing both sides, torn between her family and, her desire to prove herself within the organization.
It really makes you think about loyalty, and about the choices we make when we're pulled in different directions. Is she a victim? Is she being used by the people she trusts? Or is she the one pulling the strings, using her, her seemingly innocent nature to her advantage?
It's a question that sticks with you, even after you finish the book.
Mm.
And it makes you wonder what happens to her in the end. Does she fully commit to Spinnaker's world? Or does she break free, find her own way?
I have a feeling her story isn't over. She's a character with a lot of potential, for good or for bad. I wouldn't be surprised if she shows up again in the next book.
Agreed. She's a wild card. It'll be interesting to see what the author does with her. We've talked a lot about the individual characters, but I think we should take a step back and look at the big themes in this book.
Definitely. The Gold of Fort Knox is more than just an action-packed adventure. It's a story that digs into these big ideas. Trust, betrayal, manipulation, and the whole idea of power, how seductive it can be.
And it makes you ask some tough questions about the world. Are we all just pawns in some big game? Are we being controlled by forces we don't even see? And when do the ends justify the means? How far is too far?
Those are questions that, every reader has to answer for themselves. There are no easy answers, and that's what makes the book so powerful.
It's a story that sticks with you long after you've turned the last page. It makes you think about your own beliefs, your loyalties, your place in the world.
And it reminds us that the line between right and wrong, it's not always so clear. Sometimes even the best intentions can have some really bad consequences.
So well said. As we wrap up our deep dive into the Gold of Fort Knox, I want to leave you with this. If you were offered a chance to join Spinnaker, knowing everything you know now, would you do it?
That's a big question. I don't know that there's a right or wrong answer, but I think it's worth thinking about.
I think so too. It makes you examine your own values, what's important to you, and think about the compromises you might or might not be willing to make to get what you want.
Exactly.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the Gold of Fort Knox. We hope you enjoyed the conversation and that it got you thinking. If you haven't read the book yet, there's a link in the episode description. You should check it out.
And we'd love to hear from you. What were your favorite parts? Any theories about the mysterious woman or the ambrosious amulet? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the books and topics that make you think. Until next time, happy reading.